opportunity to speak to you today. I think this is very, very, very important.
Can you get right up against the microphone?
That I'm going to talk about. Can't hear me? No.
Is it turned on?
Okay, there you go. Is that better?
I had the same.
Okay. It's been 6 years since my son Trevor was shot and killed by Waterloo Regional Police Officer. Since that time, I've sought out other families who have been thrown into a horrific world of loss. We are called the affected families of police homicide, Ontario. I have seen and experienced that the present system makes victims of us all. By this I mean all of us. This is what I call the two-ripple effect, and I did this presentation to the Toronto Police Services Board as well. One ripple being the families, go out with the families, their friends, the community. And the other ripple is the police shooter, their community, their families, and their friends. So they're almost two separate ripples, which is unfortunate they're separate. But we, the families of police homicide, do not receive trauma supports in any form. The SIU does have an affected persons coordinator, but we do not have the outreach and the trauma support. Victim services within the police world, and it does seem to attach itself to the police world. So I've had a meeting with Deputy Chief Percy of the Halton Regional Police and Kimberly Clark of the Victim Services as well. We're going to work on actually getting better trauma supports out to people that are traumatized in the community by either police actions or whatever it is. It seems like we've been overlooked for too long. We had a meeting also with Tony Laparco, the new director of the SIU, Bill Curtis, the executive director, Lou Martino, the legal counsel, and Nikki Buchok, the affected persons coordinator, to bring forward many of our concerns. At the coroner's inquest into my son's death, I did not have a lawyer. I represented our family. I got a chance to question the shooter, and in a very compassionate way, I said to her, I don't blame you. Personally, I don't blame you, but I do blame your training. I do blame the training. It's very unfortunate, and I was fortunate that I got to talk to her family, and her family said that she has been devastated by this happening, in her life. I've spoken to people at the SAU that know that she's been extremely devastated. I talked to other police shooters, I talked to witness officers, I talked to many people to understand not just my world, but your world as well. To understand the trauma. When Ian Matthews suicided at headquarters last year, I was devastated and I started thinking, well, there's another ripple effect that goes out in the police community. I know there's more behind it, but it just was very tragic that we don't get the trauma supports, and I don't think that the actual police get the trauma supports that they should have either. So it's with this, and it resonated with me, that I would like to ask the Police Services Board, which I've looked at your mandate, and I understand that you are tasked with making sure that police officers are safe for duty. And I would like to see the Hamilton Police Services Board actually push for mandatory clearance, mentally, psychologically, through a process that is tasked with every police services, and I've done my homework, but I think it's the board's job, and it is your mandate, and I think it's under undue hardship that the board can say and determine on the basis of any evidence that they're not fit for duty, and it is your duty to do that. It is with that I ask you to investigate Officer Ryan Tosher, presently in the homicide unit, who's refusing this treatment. This man, you know him to be somebody who's had 3 incidents investigated by the SIU, cleared, and he has shot and killed 2 people.
Karen, you cannot drift into naming individuals.
Okay, well let's just say
leave it specifically to providing trauma to victims, which is what
didn't refuse after the Hamilton first citizen was shot. And so you get my message.
Okay.
I think it's very important that that's investigated, because he came to Hamilton as a hockey enforcer, as a tough person, as somebody that it's your job.
You cannot drift off what you asked with your delegation for. You're going into specific officers, and I'm going to keep stopping you if you try to do that. Please talk about trauma for
Good
victims.
supports are there. Make sure that we are safe by insisting police are psychologically cleared for duty. And otherwise, this is on you. All you.
Okay.
Because if it's not clear, we need to build that resiliency. We need to take care of those things. And Chief DeCare is responsible as well.
Okay.
He can no longer hide behind his rich friends.
Okay.
Point of order.
Point of order, madam.
Straight out from the
Use the
conversation.
microphone, please.
What would you like?
There's a point of order call, so I actually need to remember what a point of order is.
Just, the conversation has gone away from what the mandate was.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull it back. To stay away from naming individual officer.
And if there is a complaint, there is the OIRPD that absolutely is open to any individual that wants to make a complaint about, an officer or something like that. That is the avenue. This is not the avenue we want to hear. I was quite moved with what you talked about, trauma support and all of that, and absolutely we care deeply about what happens on both sides. But when you get into a complaint process, there is a clear, and if you had looked on the website, there's a
That's
clear
not my
process.
complaint. It's you to be aware of.
It's a clear process for lodging a complaint. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Harry? Use the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Karen, when did you appear at the top of the Police Services Board?
2 years ago, after the Never Again Coalition, I was one of 26 people presenting to the Toronto Police Services Board and hoping that they would also make it mandatory. And actually, the chief there, we had a meeting afterwards and we talked about it, and he's going to push for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the presenter? Here, one question. Was there any resolution that come out of the Toronto board after your presentation? Or was simply you engaged with the chief afterwards?
With Deputy Chief Percy of Alton, if you're talking
No,
about.
we're talking about Toronto board. Was there any particular
There's
resolution?
no trauma board, but it was just that I represent Samia Tim's family, I represent the Dorr family, I am the lead for the communications for the affected families of Police Homicide Ontario. So I've seen through, I've had 6 series of meetings with the Ombudsman, different families attending the different meetings across the province, and I've seen a common thread, and that is trauma. I suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder. There are 4 other families that suffer with post-traumatic stress disorders, financial hardship, and a lot of things. So I can talk about mine very easily, but I also see it happens in police.
Okay, I see no more questions, so motion to proceed. Motion by Brown, second by Wall, all in favor, carried. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your presentation. I'll now move on to item 2.4 of the agenda, call on Chief DeCare, Sergeant Schoen, and Detective Sergeant Hennig to present the 5-year summary of HPS work to women's services groups. Voting is yours. And just for information purposes, there is a letter from Interval House. It's at 4.5E on your agenda. And I asked the chief in his presentation to the board after receiving that letter, so I think we'll see a lot of useful information come out of the presentation. So if you're ready, the podium is yours.
Police Service Board Chair, Police Service Board members, Chief DeCare, Acting Deputy Chief Shea, Deputy Chief Clerk, Senior Officers, ladies and gentlemen, yes. Everyone hear me okay?
That's better.
As the Chair has spoken to, we prepared this summary. My name is Detective Sergeant David Hennig, and I currently work in our Victims of Crime Unit. And I started in January of this year. I took over from Maggie Showman. You guys all know Maggie. And as part of my responsibilities, I look after the Domestic Violence Unit, the Sex Offender Registry Unit, the Sexual Assault Unit, and Missing Persons Coordinator. So I'm going to start off by going through about a 21-point slide. I'm going to go through points. And then when I get through some of the areas that Maggie has more experience and has worked since her time in that position, she's going to speak to those.
And just ask you, make sure you speak up because you're tall, and when we'll just about 5 minutes for you.
Okay. Domestic violence and sex assaults are known to be two of the most underreported crimes. So since January 2010, there has been a 9% increase in reported domestic-related occurrences. And there's been a 22% increase in reported sexual assault-related occurrences, and that includes child and adult. Now, when you're speaking specifically to the sexual assault unit, which is individuals reporting sexual offenses from 16 years of age and up, that number actually jumps to 33.5% increase. And why that's important is just to the point here of us knowing of how underreported that both of those offenses are. Just to touch on briefly some of our training, we have 293 officers, including supervisors, who have completed the Ontario Police College Certified Domestic Violence Investigators course. Our women's services groups partner with Hamilton Police and provide a half-day of training. We've involved our community partners in the training of victim services, HPS volunteers, and our sworn members. And Hamilton Police, we partner to support sexual assault and women abuse awareness media campaigns. May being Sexual Assault Month, and November domestic violence. Specifically with Integral House Hamilton, partnered on two initiatives. The first one in 2008-2009 was a MISS phone initiative, which is a mobile independent safety system, where a ministry grant was received where we partnered with Integral House Hamilton, where 40 cell phones were purchased with GPS capabilities. In the end, the funding did not continue to the grant, but all the phones were donated to Integral House. The second was a legal advocate liaison, and that's with Victim Services, 2009-2010. So a representative from Integral House Women's Center worked directly with our Victim Services branch and our domestic violence unit for enhanced victim safety planning and communication, and formed part of our member of our high-risk domestic violence operation team. So just as a bit of a review from 2010 forward, in 2010, Hamilton Police presented at a Hamilton-based provincial conference on domestic violence. The high-risk domestic violence community advisory team was presented as best practice. Marco Vicentini, our House Legal Counsel, he actually completed several presentations on that. And I myself, just the other day, fielded a phone call from Ottawa Police Service on our model here in Hamilton. Hamilton Police conducted analysis on domestic violence reports. And out of that analysis, an additional review was created where who's ever in my position now as a Detective Sergeant VOC. It's another level of review, so anytime any individual is charged with domestic violence, that is the report is forwarded to my attention for review. Potentially having 4 levels of review, from the road supervisor who initially goes to the call, the staff sergeant or the patrol officer who goes to the call, myself, and if the offender is deemed high risk, to our domestic violence unit. Also was built into that as part of the review was a bi-monthly quality control audit. And this resulted in an increase in contact with victim services. And any time that there's a PTA release, which is a promise to appear after an offender has been released, a warrant has been issued for an offender's arrest, or an offender has been deemed as high risk to reoffend, the victims are contacted within 24 hours by our Victim Services branch. In 2011, our domestic violence unit began coordinating family court order investigations. Sometimes these are very complicated investigations which require contact and communication with shelters within our community. And because of the relationships that are formed, the person who occupies my position or any member of the domestic violence unit, we work with shelter leads on a very regular basis. And those relationships make those investigations a little bit easier, and that's why that was put in place. Domestic violence training by our police duty unit. So supervisors course, the domestic violence course, they instruct the communications branch, recruits, Sunday schools, block training, and integration of all the training across Hamilton Police. In total, 22 community presentations in 2011. In 2012, we created Bill 168 Workplace Ministry Notification Document for victims of domestic violence. One of our youth officers at Division 30 partnered with Interval House specifically and created a presentation on domestic violence involving youth. Block training by Hamilton Police. Victim services including discussion on domestic violence in shelters, a shelter-produced video was shown. And again, the training and 18 community presentations were completed in 2012. In 2012, we also took part in the Mentor Action, which again was led by Interval House, but we partnered with them on. It was started in 2012 with the model of standing up and speaking out. Initially, Chief DeCara was our representative, and now this year is Inspector Diodati. And it is about prominent male role models and leaders of our community speaking out against domestic violence. In 2013, block training by Hamilton Police Victim Services included discussions on domestic violence in shelters and shelter-produced videos once again shown. Research was completed to the London Police Program to reduce domestic violence recidivism through first offender contact and intervention. I can tell you that the John Howard Society is currently looking into that, also partnering with our Victim Services branch, Susan Double, and we're continuing looking into that program right now. See if it's going to be something that we adopt here in the Hamilton community. Domestic violence training, again by the Hamilton Police DD unit, and 18 presentations were completed in 2013. Which brings us to 2014. One of the things that we did recently, all of our recruits attended Interval House, and they had a tour of their facility and interacted with some of their staff. Introduction to shelters will be conducted for each recruit class, and what we plan on doing is alternating the shelters that each one of the recruits attend, and Superintendent Debbie Clark has been helping us work through that with all the new recruits that join our police service. HPS, our legal counsel, spoke at Halton Victim Services Conference advocating for the inclusion of community partners at the high-risk domestic violence committee. Like I said, I field regular calls on this. Hamilton is one of the only communities to have citizen representation as members of our high-risk domestic violence community. And I share Marco's presentation and memorandum of understanding that he has drafted up with it on a regular basis. So I'm not sure how many phone calls that you field, but I continue to do that, so I'm very proud of that. Domestic violence training unit by Hamilton Police DD unit, and several community presentations so far this year. Just to give you an idea of how many committees that we're actually involved with: Domestic Violence Coordinators Provincial Committee, Domestic Violence Court Advisory Committee, Family Court Advisory Committee, intensive supervision meetings with probation and parole, which happen on a regular basis, usually with any offenders that are deemed high risk. The Death Review Committee Inquiry, High Risk Domestic Violence Community Advisory Committee, Women's Services Advisory Committee to the Chief, and Women Abuse Working Group. And our high-risk domestic violence community advisory team, I've spoken on a couple of times already. We have representatives at the table from our domestic violence unit, Coast, Probation and Parole, Correctional Services, CAS, CCAS, women's shelters, addiction services, victims witness assistance program, victim services, bail safety, sexual assault centers, and Catholic and family services. We've been recognized provincially as best practice and presented at 2010 conference. And like I just said, we're the only high-risk team with community representation at the table. And in 2014, October of this year, working with Susan Bell, she's helped organize a half-day breakout session where we're going to be doing analysis on the work that has been done, almost approaching the 10-year anniversary on the future direction of that committee, and if it's going to be necessary to start to collect statistics to report on the good work that's being done. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad Nation.
Good afternoon. The Women's Services Advisory Committee to the Chief was created back in September 2002. It was created to bring issues to the Chief from the women's services community for discussion, input, and action. As you can see listed here, the number of different agencies that sit at the table. There are numerous members from the Hamilton Police Service, but also from our women's groups, including the shelters, sexual assault centers, victim services, and we've also brought in Tamara Nagy from Walk With Me in regards to human trafficking. Since January 2010, there are 18 identified action items that were on the table, and they have all been completed to date. Just a brief overview of what we've done since 2010. There was an issue in regards to our recruiting process, and the question that came about is, do we actually flag or take a look at officers or candidates who may have issues in regards to domestic violence or violence against women? We built into the recruiting process flagging as well as questions to be able to wean out those types of candidates. We had a concern brought to us in regards to how the women's groups were notified in regards to domestic violence homicides, as well as incidents involving violence against women. We created a process where our internal members were notified, the women's groups were notified, and then the media was notified. We ensured that they were captured in the notification of all types of releases from the Hamilton Police Service involving violence against women. We completed ISD awareness training. That included 163 officers in our investigative services division. The women's groups came together and they presented this training to our officers, and it was regarding domestic violence, Aboriginal issues, and marginalized victims. In 2011, the Women's Advisory put together a presentation, and they came 42 weeks to our block training and taught our officers gender equity training. So they partnered with us directly in our block training. We amended the shelter communications protocol once, and we're actually in the process to once again amend it because we recognize that there is continual progression and growing needs for our community members and our members to understand how to communicate better to make sure that the victims are taken care of. They had input in regards to the missing persons protocol in our policies, and they did victim sensitivity training to our victims of crime branch, because we wanted to ensure that how we spoke to our victims of sexual assaults and domestic violence was in the most sensitive manner with their input, because they deal with victims every day. In 2012, we enhanced our methods of victims being able to report historical sexual assaults. Before, they used to have to come into the station, or we had an officer attend their home. What we've done is we actually have now created the opportunity for them to call into the sexual assault unit, make their initial report by phone, and then have follow-up through by our detectives. We've increased our educational media exposure, and one of our key components was the bail safety program. We work together with all of these community groups to create letters of support to ensure that the ministry maintain funding for our bail safety program, recognizing its value for victim safety and their input in regards to the judicial process. We also did that again in 2013, and right now our bail safety program is still in place, and I believe that the factor is for the communication and community support from Hamilton. In 2013, we enhanced our victim safety and our offender management. We started utilizing the bail compliance unit for all high risk. We have a bail compliance unit that will actually go to the the offender's home to ensure that they are complying with their conditions, as well as speaking with their sureties. Once again, as I had said, we did support letters for the bail safety program, and then there was collaborative work on the sexual assault community response protocol, which was signed this year, which moves into this year. One was the shelter communications protocol. It is actually being signed in September. We're in the final stages of the shelter protocol once again being amended. This is the second time in the past 5 years. It has moved from a 9-page document to a 21-page document to ensure good communication between the shelters and the Hamilton Police Service. We have amended the domestic violence community response protocol with the WAG members, and it is to be signed in 2014 as well. And we did just recently sign the sexual assault community response protocol, and I'll show you the photo in regards to that. One of the things that we've been working on throughout these entire 5 years is a strategic response to drug-facilitated sexual assault. This is part of the WAG component as well as the Women's Services Advisory Committee. We actually partnered on 3 different media launches, Don't Be That Guy campaign, and we actually did our media component at Hess Village, Draw the Line campaign, and Draw the Line 2 campaign. As you can see, one of the first campaigns, Don't Be That Guy, just because she isn't saying no doesn't mean she's saying yes. It was a component that we felt being promoted in Hess Village through all of the bars and the restaurants, as well as the people who are working there. They were all wearing buttons. It was a huge component that we worked with the community to bring awareness to ending sexual assault. The Women Abuse Working Group is a coalition of more than 20 agencies that work to end violence against women. We have been a resource member with them for over 15 years, and presently Susan Double is our representative. She presently is the co-chair for the Public Awareness and Education Committee, and every May and November we are part of their awareness campaigns. We are also a member of their SODAR, which is the Sexual Offenses Domestic Assault Review Team, and we have completed 2 protocols while working on SODAR. There are 6 community agencies that are part of SODAR. As you can see here, this is a group of actual agencies that are signing the sexual assault response protocol. This photo is actually posted on the website for WAG to show the community support and the collaboration that we have with our community in regards to ending sexual violence. So as you can see, in summary, through discussion, collaboration, and implementation with the Women's Services Advisory Committee with the Chief, the Hamilton Police Service has completed in-depth modifications to policies, protocols, training, discipline, processes, and communication and advancement of providing services to the women in our community. We are victim-focused, we are victim-centered, we are striving to provide the very best safety, security, and support to our victims. But we also realize that this will always be a work in progress until violence against women ends. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, any comments before I open up to the board for questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair and members of the board. As you can see, a very detailed presentation which is a complex response to very complex issues in our city, and I want to thank Detective Sergeant Hennick and Staff Sergeant Sean for their leadership over the last 5 years on this important issue. The Hamilton Police Service responded to over 6,000, between 6,000 and 6,500 domestic violence incidents every year. That's about 16 a day on average. That's tomorrow. That's every day. It's every single day. And we work to reach our goal, which is the protection of victims of crime. The Hamilton Police Service also respond to in excess of 400 sexual assaults each year, and it is in fact an incredible number of victims, and that is, as I mentioned, the focus of all of our work. And as a community, Staff Sergeant Schoen has stated that we came together in 2012 and 2013 to Save the Bail Safety Project, a collaborative effort of community partners. Project, once again, that was designed for the support of victims for their protection and safety. These are examples of strong partnerships and partnerships which are important. Our goal, and you saw it in one of the original slides there, is to actually increase the reporting because it's critical. We then conduct thorough investigations. We are guided by the evidence. We make independent determinations. You have seen there the innovative projects to protect women and children, and in particular, innovation in reaching out to protect child witnesses as well. And you saw another example of a great collaborative, the Drug Facilitated Sexual Assault Prevention Program. Hamilton Police Service has been used as a best practice model in the province of Ontario, particularly our high-risk model. The board's policies, which are currently in place regarding domestic violence and sexual assault, have been in place as required by the adequacy standards of the ministry. We have met all the components of the board's policies in the delivery of service. We have provided training and developed the competencies of our people to investigate these incidents from frontline, from cruiser to courts. The board should be confident in the fact that the policy has been recently audited by the ministry. In specific, in the 2012 audit, domestic violence was one of the 5 key areas, and the ministry completed their audit of the Hamilton Police Service, making no recommendations. This is a work in progress right across the service, right from training, right from our recruitment, right from orientation, as you heard in the presentation, and it will remain an ongoing issue for the service because one of its priority in our community, and two, because we have 25% of our frontline workforce that has 6 years of experience or less. So this is always going to be an issue that the service must remain and keep as a priority. But the biggest priority is for the protection of victims of crime, from domestic violence and sexual assault. So subject to any questions, those are my comments.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? Member DeGear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just have a couple of questions. Thank you, Deb and Dave, for that great presentation. My question deals with, you did mention in your presentation that you do have many workshops, etc., and that you do involve community groups in those workshops. So is it my understanding then that when you bring community groups to the table, participate in the workshops, that they do have the opportunity to provide you input in terms of the content of those workshops?
Through you, Chair. The workshops are actually designed by them. We give them the opportunity for their input. So the half-day training that they conduct at every domestic violence course is their components. It's their words, their thoughts, their feelings, their concerns that are brought to the table for half-day to teach our officers. When we did ISD awareness training, they created the examples to use and the answers that we were looking for from them to ensure that they understood the concepts and the components that were necessary when dealing with domestic violence and violence against women. Every workshop, every training, every opportunity is given to the community partners that are at the table, at all the tables of the committees that we sit on, to provide input and to actually offer the training.
Okay, so they are at the table and they present workshops as well.
Yes.
Thanks for that. Mr. Chair, through you, if I can ask the chief a question. On the HPS on community committees involving domestic violence chief, it indicates that Susan Double sits at the right table, and it indicates that she is the HPS representative, which I'm very pleased to see because undoubtedly Susan Double is known worldwide with regards to her work in victim services. My question to you, Chief, is that as a result of her sitting at this table, who then does she report to if she has any issues or concerns which come from this table?
Thank you very much. We are very fortunate to have Susan represent us in our leading our victim services. As the board is well aware from last year's many awards that were received, victim services was highlighted. That is a program of 3 full-time staff and as many as 87 volunteers from the community that she coordinates. And all of the issues around domestic violence, sexual assault, support for victims of crime, Susan is well familiar with and has been doing this job for many, many years. So we value her experience. And sitting representing us at the WAG table, she is privy to all of the conversations, all of the issues, all of the concerns, and she has direct access to my office with any concerns that are returned from there, and then together we coordinate what areas of the service will need to be touched or impacted regarding any of those concerns, what training may need to be adjusted in any way, but that comes directly back to my office through Susan, and then we act on that.
Mr. Chair, can I at this time comment on the letter from Interval House, or do you want to do it?
No, absolutely.
So we did receive a letter, I shouldn't say we, and that's why my comment is with regards to the letter that came from Claire Freeman, who is the executive of Interval House. A complaint letter went to 3 councillors, Ferguson, Collins, and Whitehead, all male councillors on this board. My comment is that I am disappointed that there are 3 female members of this board, and yet the letter was not addressed to us. So that's
Just a comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
My other suggestion is, again, Mr. Chair, through you to the chief, this letter does talk about expressing our dismay. So, chief, I am hoping that as the chief, you would consider meeting with the board of directors from Interval House and finding out from the board exactly what the issues are and concerns are, and hopefully you will be able to bring back a report to us with regards to that meeting.
That was going to exactly be my question. Remember, it says here that we conducted a community safety audit, interviewed 110 women from diverse communities who had experienced domestic violence. The women interviewed were not involved in our service, and the results were startling. Almost all of them reported negative experiences using the police services, and all of them said they would not use the service again. That's just sort of coming from an executive director. And to the chief or one of the presenters, have you met, and this is a public document now before us today, have you spoke to Claire Freeman and asked her about this and seen the results of her survey and got her true feelings of why she felt necessary to write this letter, especially in light of all the progress you've made over the last number of years?
In April of 2013, she brought awareness to the Women's Services Advisory Committee that this audit had been conducted. She was to present the entire report, which was 250 pages, and was supposed to give a copy to each member of the committee. We have to date not received a copy of that report, yet it was put onto the agenda on 4 different occasions. We received a 14-page slide handout that gave a very, very brief overview of this report, but to date we do not have a copy of that report yet. We've asked for it, as well as a copy of the executive summary.
Okay, so have you met with her since she penned this letter to the 3 councillors?
No, we have not.
Okay. Your request is that the chief meet with the board and then report back to this board on the findings as a result of this letter. Is that correct? I'll come back to that motion then after we've had all the questions. Well,
I just, with all due respect here, I didn't get a copy of the letter either, so whether it's male or female, I think it really doesn't matter. But I don't know how to say this without, or through you, Mr. Chair, Chief. When I read this letter, I read and looked. I've never met Claire Freeman, but to write a letter like this would take a brave person to sign a letter like this. The way I read it, I just hope that we can actually deal with this in the care and compassion that I saw in this letter. That we can actually respectfully respond to it in the same way, please.
okay, I'm hearing that we're going to get a motion to do just that.
Right, but I would like to have it so that, I realize that this is a sensitive time and the letter is whatever, but I think we can actually treat this in the most dignified manner that will be appreciated by this member. Thank you.
Okay, that's a comment. There's no question in that?
No, that's all I can say.
Okay. So I see no other questions, so I'll come back to you for the motion
Just
now.
to answer the members' My comment was that as 3 members on this board, we did not receive the letter. That was my comment. So as 3 women members on this board, all of our lives have been very involved with women issues in the city. We did not get it.
Okay, I think we got that point.
Thank
It was circulated to the media, and there was a story written about it, that's how it became public. And so I asked for this letter to be presented before the board tonight, because it was addressed to me and 2 other councillors, and asked the chief to prepare this presentation so we can just see what progress we've made. And I would like to see that. I agree with you here. That next step, meet with the board, not necessarily try to meet with their board. And of course, she'll be there. She's the executive director, and report back in the findings of the future meeting. So that's a motion. Second by Mary Station. For the discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? It carries unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, we'll move on now to item 3, which is request if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll come back for approval of all of them as we go through them. Item 4.2, any questions or comments? 4.3, 4.4. Remember that?
Yes, I would like to, I'd like to have a discussion about the chair of that, so I'd like to table that.
There's a motion to table those minutes until future meeting. The chair would request a seconder to that. Irene, second discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? Carries unanimously. 4.5, the information of the board. This is the first one is the police towing contract, 4.5A. That would be the Hamilton Wetlands District School Board Community Partner Appreciation Schedule for Wednesday, October 29th. Correspondence from the chair of the Blue Mountain Police Services Board, just supporting our suspension without pay resolution. And now D, Chief, do you want to make comments on D, the letter from Shaker?
Thank you very much. The service takes very seriously the financial wellness and the accountability of the taxpayer dollar. And it is important that the board is aware that we exercise your interest in the financial reporting requirements pursuant to the Police Services Act. And we are guided by Section 39 of the Ontario Police Services Act, which falls under Part 3 regarding municipal police service boards. Under Section 39, boards are required annually to submit estimates to the municipality and to the council, which detail out the separate accounts of the operating and the capital expenditures. And that we, as a service, are required in law to prepare the estimates of the board, which I would draw to your attention are presented in a public domain in a very open and transparent manner. Our budget, once it is moved forward and posted, moved forward and approved, is posted for public consumption there. Everything involving our budget is clearly available. The board then advances its own budget to the council for approval and review, and there is within the section also an opportunity for the police budget to move forward to the police commission. Section 39, although it tells us what we are required to do, it does not require that the police service produce separate non-consolidated financial statements, nor to have the financial results of the service audited separately by external auditors. And we comply with the Act. We have fully trained staff that address the financial issues. They are competent staff. We comply with all of the requirements of the City of Hamilton. We have been successfully audited year over year by the city in multiple areas. Those multiple areas include significant areas that are identified by Mr. Shaker as well, such as the reserve account, the investigative fund, our pay duty fees, our false alarm fees, our procurement usage cards, our petty cash, and the towing fees, the records section. All of our false alarms are a component of those annual audits that take place. We are also subject to the city process regarding having an external audit which is done through the city with KPMG. We also make sure that we participate in a review of the financial systems, which, by the way, are owned and operated and controlled by the city. And about 90% of our transactions through payroll are conducted by the city, all audited by the city's appointed auditors. And again, at our request, many additional areas of the service are annually audited as well. And we had a completely clean audit in 2013. And in 2014, that same audit is being repeated by our quality assurance branch. We work very closely with the city so that we are in compliance with the regulations. And Tom Hewitson of Finance is well aware of how the service is doing its business and the protocols that are in place. We do have great confidence in our full-time professional people and confidence in this board's oversight, and that all of the policies and procedures as required right from adequacy standard on down are being followed to ensure the proper financial reporting to our citizens.
Madam, could you please keep your voice down and not you're disrupting the meeting. You finished, Chief?
Thank you.
Okay, and just for the benefit of the board, I had the opportunity, I read through Shaker's letter, and so I had a meeting today with Lane Segar, Chief Financial Officer, does a lot of other things too, and he's our CFO for the city, and asked him specifically about the items identified by Shaker in his correspondence. And of course, with Cleveland, $2,176,000 in employee-related costs. We record this differently than the way the police do in our documents, but the books do balance. That's all part of an overall contingency related to items that are very confidential because it's part of our negotiations and the reserve funds that are set up. The $469,000 that was identified by Shaker is a reinstatement of the trunking radio system. Our fire department put in, I believe it was a $22 million trunking radio system, which the police share. And so there's a reinstatement of some of the costs associated with that. He tells me that this is part that the police are part of the city audit, both internal and external. Police are included in all various reports that come to council for operating capital and reserves. And the $714,000 that couldn't be balanced couldn't be done because that's shown in the capital budget for the police, not the operating budget. So as your board chair, in addition to the chief, I'm satisfied that our books are in order, but I might recommend, just to get total closure on this, because it's been hanging around for a while, is that the board asked the city of Hamilton to use the services of our internal auditor to review the issues outlined by Shaker in his documents and confirm back to the board that everything is satisfactory. So we can do one of two things: simply receive it tonight, or ask our internal auditor. And Mike Segar says it's not a lot of work because he's already got all the information he needs. But accountant to accountant, Shaker to our internal auditor, let them come back to us and tell us as a board, as accountants, that everything is in order. So that's what we'll do the board for questions or comments. Which one, the receiving or asking the internal auditor? Okay, so you're moving that? And the motion would read, Lois, that the board requests the city have our internal auditors confirm issues identified by Shaker are satisfactory. Okay, so you're moving that. Is there a second to that? Irene, discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? Did you put your hands up in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And our senior Mike Segar says this will not involve any staff time for the police. He has all the information they need. It won't be much time for our cost. But it just gives us final closure. And then, of course, there's the correspondence from Claire Agreement from Involvers. Any questions on that? Okay, then, I need to have a motion to approve all the consent items, save and accept the minutes of the Government Advisory Committee between Cable and any motion to that effect? Moved by Nancy DiGregorio, seconded by Walt. Just minutes, discussion on it. All in favor? Carried. Item 5.1 is a business plan proposal. Before you, there's a recommendation that we approve it. What's your wish? Moved by Nancy, seconded by Madeline. All in favor? Carried. And both A and B. And then 5.2, the Youth and Policing Initiative, that the board approves the chair's previous endorsement. Chief.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just speak to this briefly, we are very appreciative of our relationship with the province of Ontario, and the Ontario Ministry of Children and Youth Services has once again provided funding, full funding for 5 summer students and to be employed by the service, an opportunity to bring young people into our organization to work on orientation, socialization, and to show them a different side of policing and to build those positive relationships. This is an excellent program funded by the province and we highly recommend it.
Thank you. Discussions? If not, a motion to approve it. Moved by Madeline, seconded by Irene. All in favor? Carried. Any new business?
We received correspondence, the board received correspondence back in June, and I'd just like to direct you to share with you from the International Business Student Regulatory. So I'd like to have that on this agenda.
Okay. Also, can you make sure that that letter from International Pay is on the agenda for the next meeting? You know the one we're referring to? Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, seeing none, a motion to adjourn to the camera. Moved by Nancy, seconded by Madeline. All in favor? Carried. We'll take a 10-minute break while we go in camera. Thank you.